When Rime was announced back in 2017, it immediately caught my eye. Its cel-shaded art style reminded me of Zelda Wind Waker, and its world and exploration looked like a combination of other legendary titles like Ico and Journey. The creative director, Raul Rubio, listed Jason and the Argonauts and Studio Ghibli movies as inspirations for the game, as well as the artwork of Joaquin Sorolla, Salvador Dali, and Giorgio de Chirico. Just look at the concepts for this game. I love monolithic stone structures and ancient architecture. And just like Ico and Journey, this game gives off that feeling of mystery and isolation. The main thing I liked were these walking spheres. They seemed like a long-lost ancient race of sentient robots, and I was so eager to dive deeper into the lore of what they are, the purpose of this island, and the mysterious red-cloaked figure that you constantly see throughout the game. Unfortunately, things take a turn for the worst for me. I have nothing against the game's story itself, so my criticisms of the game are mainly just my personal thoughts because I expected the game to be something that it wasn't. This is where I get into spoiler territory, so fair warning. So at the start of the game you wash up on an island, and later on you remember that the boy lost his father at sea due to a bad storm. But here's the big twist. It turns out that the boy is actually the one who drowned at sea, not his father, and that the boy in this island is just a manifestation of the father's grief. The 5 stages of the game represent the 5 stages of mourning: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This whole adventure was the father just coping with the fact that he lost his son. Now this isn't a bad concept, and I'm sure a lot of people still enjoyed this game. But for someone who expected so much out of the lore, I was let down. For example, the giant monolith with the key-shaped opening. Turns out it was nothing but the father daydreaming about a keyhole. I understand that the keyhole motif in the game is about the father unlocking the different stages of grief, and the final keyhole is him unlocking his son's room to accept the fact that he isn't there. But all that beautifully crafted architecture and history being imagined took me out of the immersion. It would be equivalent to me playing Journey, and I found out that the red-cloaked traveler was just a red handkerchief I was looking at while I was going through the motions. This is one of the reasons I thought Raya the Last Dragon was a forgettable movie. The lore was absolutely incredible, and looked like it could have rivaled Nickelodeon's Avatar. The nations being named after the parts of a dragon was a really cool concept, but unfortunately, they didn't really expand on it. It was all just a one-and-done experience. But in Rime's case, it wasn't even a one-and-done, it just wasn't real. Now I'm going to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time that did something similar to Rime. The story centers on Max, an 8-year-old boy with an active imagination who feels misunderstood by his divorced parents and older sister. After a tantrum where he bites his mother and destroys his sister's room, Max runs away from home wearing a wolf costume. He sails across the ocean to a mystical island inhabited by 7 large emotional creatures, known as the Wild Things. Initially viewed with suspicion, Max convinces the creatures that he is a king with magical powers capable of bringing harmony to their chaotic lives. The creatures crown him their ruler, and Max promises to create a paradise where everyone is happy, leading them to build an enormous fort and engage in wild antics. However, Max soon discovers that ruling is difficult and that his relationships with the Wild Things become complicated. I'm about to go into spoilers for this movie, but I highly recommend people watch it for its gorgeous scenery, the amazing animatronics, the somber storytelling, and incredible soundtrack. Ultimately, the film serves as a poignant exploration of childhood loneliness, the complexities of leadership, and the realization that one cannot escape the need for family and home. I first saw this film when I was a teenager, but it was after a decade that I finally understood that the events of Where the Wild Things are presented as Max's imagination, and the Wild Things represent Max's own complex emotions, such as anger, sadness, and the desire for connection. While the original 1963 book implies the adventure occurs entirely within Max's bedroom, the movie depicts him physically sailing to a remote island in Australia to meet the creatures. This ambiguity serves the narrative by blurring the line between fantasy and reality, suggesting that for Max, his imaginative world is just as real and impactful as his physical surroundings. In Rime, the game builds up a sense of wonder and ancient mystery, only to replace it with a mundane, realistic tragedy, making previous efforts feel pointless or meaningless. Max's inner turmoil perfectly mirrored his adventure from start to finish, with the creature's internal conflicts and feelings of insecurities mirroring Max. But the father's inner turmoil at the end of Rime felt abrupt and underwhelming, because it contradicted the game's earlier mysterious, exploration-focused tone from the start of the game. Sort of like a retcon, a bait and switch.
Hide away. Well, they'll seat us in the sun. By the way, no, you've always been the one. You ask your reasons why.
Yeah.
Once was yours is mine.
Very good.
My baby's gone.
We were gonna make a whole world like this, but not everyone used to come here. But, you know what it feels like when all your teeth are falling out really slowly and you don't realize, and then you notice that, well, they're really far apart. And then one day, you don't have any teeth anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it was like that.